Okay, it's 7:05 p.m. I've been contacted by Christina. She's going to be a couple minutes late, so we'll address that at the right time. This is Chairman Mike McCoo, Wellington Board of Finance, calling to order a special budget meeting of February 25th, 2021 at 7:05 p.m. Next on the agenda is seating of alternates. Stephanie Summers is out of state due to a family emergency and has requested that Lisa be seated for her. So I'll make a motion that Lisa Wolf is seated for Steph Summers. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Brenda, you can't.
You can't yet, Brenda, because we haven't, right now you're in the alternate position.
I'll second that. Can I just make one, won't be a, let me just make a brief point here. Every board of finance I was involved in, we always alternated the alternates, regardless of who decided to want whoever they wanted to be.
So Jeff, people are allowed to request their alternate, A, and B, Brenda is about to get seated for Christina.
Okay.
So there's your answer for tonight. So continuing on with the motion to seat Lisa for Stephanie, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I should have had Marissa call that vote. Marissa, would you call the vote, please?
Yeah, Pete,
If that was me, I'm yes. I had a
Okay.
standing door in the background.
and Jeff,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And second, Christina is going to be late to the meeting. She's at another meeting right now. So I'd like to make a motion to seat Brenda Abrams, who has been sworn in and is a member of this board now, for Christina.
I will second.
Any discussion? All right, Marissa, call the vote.
Matt,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes. Okay, approval of minutes. We have minutes for February 18th. I will make a motion, we accept the minutes of February 18th as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion, additions or corrections? Seeing none, Marissa, can you call the vote?
Pete,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Matt,
Same.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brenda.
Yes.
Okay. Present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. If you are on video, well, it doesn't look like anyone's on video right now, but if you would like to speak, yes, I do see one. Wave your hand if you'd like to speak and present to speak.
Mike, I would like to.
Anyone else who's not in video who would like to speak, unmute and speak up?
Mike, if I could.
Sure.
So Erica Wyszynski, I wanted to share with this board yesterday at the statewide municipal call, there was lots of discussion around the topic of referendums and town meetings and whether or not the process would at all be changed or reverted as it was last year. There was no indication that would happen. Again, as of right now, the governor's executive orders will only go through April 19th. Our town meeting would be the following day, April 20th, and then our referendum the first Tuesday in May. And so there seemed to be clear support that unless there was some outcry from a large number of municipalities that they would not be changing the process such as it was last year, so that in some way towns would be able to hold their referendum. Understanding that last year there was a shortage on PPE, there was a lot of unknowns with the pandemic, thus the changes in process. So it does not appear, as you've been asking for a while now, whether or not the process would be such that the Board of Finance and or boards of selectmen would be making decisions like we did last year. So it looks like we'll have a normal process.
Okay, so we would revert to what had happened before COVID, which would be
Correct.
normal public hearing processes and
Mhm.
referendum.
Absolutely. Again, the conversation from the governor's staff was that at this point they did not see that that would be necessary, or that there were anything indicating a need for such a drastic change in that process. There may be some alterations to voting, including absentee voting potentially, but that's all still up in the air. But I anticipate that we would be following the normal process for budget, the statutory normal process for Wellington.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else present to speak? Unmute and call out your name, please. Okay, moving on to new business. Item 1, budget discussion. 1A, Department 0135, Board of Assessment Appeals. This is a fairly simple budget with only a few lines in it, and it's a zero change from the current fiscal year. Is there anyone from representing Board of Assessment Appeals who wishes to speak? It appears there is not. Any board discussion? All right. Looks like no discussion on this topic. We'll move on to 1B, which is Board of Education. And I have to preface this discussion with a significant challenge for us tonight, for the board and for Mr. Stevens. And that is that apparently when I forwarded all of the budgets on February 11th and 12th, for some reason, this attachment didn't go through. And I didn't know it until 6:30 tonight, when I saw Jeff's email saying, are we going to get the budget? And I almost responded back to him. I sent it to you 2 weeks ago. And then I thought, well, I better check. And I checked with other board members and they had not received it either. So unfortunately, we're at the disadvantage for the board and for Mr. Stevens that the budget, all 27 pages of it, was put into their email at about 6:30 or 6:40 this evening. And I do apologize for that. I sent a whole bunch of emails on the night of the 11th and the morning of the 12th, and this was originally attached, or I somehow screwed up the attachment, but it obviously didn't go through. So again, I apologize to everyone. Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to see if we can either have Mr. Stevens and Herb or whoever's representing the board come back at another time, either present now and come back at another time, both, or come back at another time. This is way more than half of our budget, and we've had half an hour to look at it. I realized it was a mistake. That's fine. That's cool. No problem. But can we get a commitment that we can ask questions now and then have these guys come back and visit us and answer questions again?
So first, I'll answer procedurally. We will have Mr. Stevens and anyone else, who, if it's Mr. Eric or anyone else who wanted to present, we'll have them present tonight since it is an agenda item. That'll give us time to learn a little more about it. And procedurally, we do often ask people to come back later because of this unfortunate situation that may be even more important this time. I think we're going to do a little bit of both of what you've talked about, Matt. And I see Mr. Stevens nodding his head that he's willing to return. So I guess before the presentation starts, any other board questions or comments on that, on this topic? Matt, did you have anything else?
No, no, if we, can we go through this page by page, so that we cover everything?
Yeah, I think we should, I suspect Mr. Stevens will go through it in a pretty detailed fashion based on past history.
Presentation
All right,
changed
so,
it about 6:35 tonight, so yes, I'll go through.
Yes. Yes, so I think you're ready to launch, Mr. Stevens.
I think Herb wants to say something first, Mike.
Okay, all right, Mr. Errico. You're still muted.
Good evening. I'm sorry the Board of Finance does not have a copy of the presentation this evening, but I just want to say that the budget that we have developed this year has taken a lot of effort on the part of our staff, our administration, Mr. Stevens, and the Board of Education has had multiple meetings, workshops, and meetings on this budget. And we feel that the budget itself is meeting the goals of the Board of Education, and which are student growth and the school culture and climate, and also takes care of the facilities. The package that we developed was scanned by the entire board, and I just want to say that the board itself voted unanimously for this particular budget that we're offering to you this evening. And Superintendent Stevens will go through it line by line and give you the information. But I think, and I hope that you'll be pleased with the results that we've come up with. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Errico. Mr. Stevens?
May I share my screen, please?
As soon as I accomplish that, stand by. See if that works.
Yes, sir. So what I'll do is I'm going to adjust my presentation tonight. I'm going to go through just the snapshot first, and then I'll go through the budget book in a little more detail. So it just gives you some of the background knowledge. Let me just click present on this.
Okay, just want to make one comment to the board. Because we're in screen share, I only see a few of you. So if someone has a question that they want to interrupt Mr. Stevens to ask a particular question, please unmute and just kind of call yourself out, because I may not be able to see you on the screen.
Perfect, thank you. So this is just the budget history. This is 2021 was a 1.98% increase. And you can see the budget number, and the board approved for the 21-22 year a 1.14% increase. The little caption there, the quality up, speed up, results up, and try and lower costs. That's what we've been trying to do. And so I'll walk you through some of those things of how we've done that. Herb mentioned our goals, and our goals can be tied to budget items throughout our budget. And that's how we create our budget. So we have the board goals and what we're trying to accomplish, and every item can be tied to one of these goals. So as far as assumptions and costs, we always try and put a slide in place that kind of shows where we started, what do we know. So we know at this point the medical insurance premiums are going to increase no more than 2%, and dental no more than 6%. We know that earlier this year than we've ever known that. We were getting ready to go out to bid, and we did some serious negotiations with Connecticut to maintain our contract with them, and we have an agreement that's where we will not go out to bid now. So we have a meeting with them soon. There's one placeholder for insurance, which basically means legally, if someone says, I want insurance, they didn't have it, they're an employee, they want insurance, we legally have to provide it. We keep one placeholder in there. The liability increase is capped at 3% this year. Workers' comp is down 3%. This is a big jump for us, heating, fuel, and you're going to see all these numbers within our budget as well when we go through the actual document. Heating fuel cost is significantly down. Last year we worked, give me 1 second, Matt, I see you. Heating fuel cost is significantly down because last year with COVID, we worked with our service provider, and Don and I and Erica, we basically went back and forth with them and just negotiated a great rate, and they were able to lock us in. And that's what you see there for diesel and heating fuel. So I don't know that we've seen lower for that in a long time.
So the reason that's down is because we paid the contract rate and we didn't use fuel as much material or product in the last year. And we negotiated with them to recoup some of that spending, and that's why it's lower this year.
That's the savings from last year was taken off of last year's budget. And Donna, if you just want to nod, I believe I'm right about that. That's correct. What we saw, Matt, was we saw an opportunity to negotiate because fuel prices at the time were so low. And we negotiated. Typically, they wouldn't allow us to lock in there. And they did. So we locked in our rates for 21, 22. I'm going to say, Donna, May of 20. Am I right about that? Approximately around that time. It was early, and we locked in just because the rates were so amazing. Electric rates, those rates will be adjusted January 22, so that will be down. We pay the 8.98 cents per kilowatt until January 22, and then it goes down. Again, we're trying to capture where we're getting the savings from, and we're always looking at those numbers. At this point in time, and this is the more volatile piece of the budget, we have 2 special education out-of-district placements in the budget. That could change tomorrow. Somebody could move into district, and if they have it in their individualized education plan that they're out of district, we have to pay for that. And that could be easily upward of 100,000 plus. Transportation costs is it the last year of the contract. That is a 3% increase. That was a 5-year contract, and next year is the last year of that contract.
Bill, I just want to, Pete Tanaka is raising his hand. Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, Phil, on the 2 special education out of district placements, do we have an order of magnitude on the budget effect there? I know you can't tell us anything about who they are or why or anything like that. I was just wondering if we could get whether it's 10,000, 100,000, 200,000, just some kind of order of magnitude.
I will say between transportation and the out of district placement cost for the facility and potential need for paraprofessional, you're easily in the $200,000 range.
Thank you.
I can show you that closer when we get into the budget document. I believe you can see some of the costs built into it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The one of the pieces that's new for us this year that I have not experienced since I've been either as an administrator or a superintendent is the school choice piece. We have several kids who have either moved into district, never gone to the Wellington Public Schools. School choice allows them to pick a magnet school and go to a different school. Well, if they have special education identification, we pay whatever their needs are. So if it's a paraprofessional, there's a huge increase in this budget that's never been there before. And it's in the tuition and the cost of their special education needs. And there you have to provide it. And you'll see those details when we get into the budget. And the last thing is the KERMA is not offering cyber insurance anymore. And so just as the town has to do this, we need cyber insurance. And so we're working on what that coverage is going to look like. But it's something new that we've never needed. So it's just some of the simple budget assumptions. I'll go into more detail as I go through the full document. I always mention that there's unfunded mandates. I will tell you, I have a packet It is 26 pages long. That just came on my desk yesterday. These are all of the new education bills that are up, just education bills. And they just keep adding to them. And on the first page, one of the examples I'll give you is an act concerning lunch debt, and that the Board of Education of the town is supposed to pay if there's a negative balance at the end of the year. And it's an unfunded mandate that we're required to do, and there's a lot of them. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. These are just some of the examples of some of those unfunded mandates. And sometimes it's just about time, that you have to pay someone's time to be able to meet a requirement. You're required to have an administrator at every special education meeting. And so you have to have the administrators to do that. So just some example. The last one there that's my superintendent's group has really been pushing for is that the federal special education funding for excess cost says it's supposed to be at 100%. That's what the state level is supposed to provide too. The state never gets all their federal money, and then the state never provides all the money to us. So when we have excess costs, what that means is it's 4.5 times the cost of our per pupil. So I'm going to keep the numbers really simple. If 4.5 times, if our per pupil expenditure was $20,000, anything over $90,000, they would then the state would then reimburse us at 70%. It's supposed to be 100, but typically we're about 70, 72, if we're lucky, 75%. So if we have an out of district placement that costs $100,000, you're only going to get reimbursement on 70% of the leftover, which is $10,000. So you get $7,000 back. It's something, but it should be funded at 100%, and it's not. So it's one of those mandates.
Hey, Phil.
Yes.
And with that reimbursement, is there any, can you work with the parents to recoup any of the 30%?
We're legally required to provide the best education and what's most reasonable for that student in the least restrictive environment.
Yep, I get it. It's all inclusive. I get it. But is there any way for Willington to get out in front of it and partner with appropriate out of placement? So for instance, you're not going to send a child, children can go from Willington to West Hartford pretty comfortably in a van, but they're not going to send them to Danbury, right? So is there any way you can work to, is there any partnership that can go on with out of placement? Is there any kind of, is there anything that we can get back with partnering with an out of placement school back for the town?
Yeah, so all of the out placements provide unique things. Where you do see the partnerships, Lisa, is in transportation.
Okay.
So if Ashford is sending, and we do this all the time.
Right.
If Ashford has a student that's outplaced and they're going to the same location, and we have a student, if we can safely put them on the same bus and transport them, we split the cost. We do that on a regular basis. And we'll do that with any district. If someone happens to be driving by us, it could be Union. They're driving down the highway and we realize there's a student, we try and collaborate. We're saving some money by sharing that service. We do that all the time.
Okay, so that's awesome. So thanks for pointing that out. And then on the flip side, are there any incentives that the state offers when you are accommodating to special needs or out of placement or special education inside of Willington, to the tune that, Willington has unique programs that have been developed over the years, which are all awesome. Are you getting recognized for any of them and getting incentivized?
No financial incentive.
So there's no upsides. It's only all-inclusive mandates that may be unfunded.
Yeah, correct. I mean,
Wow,
it's,
I can't even believe
Wait.
that.
and it's 4.5 times. So, I mean, that's a lot of money before you start getting any money back.
That's
Um,
crazy.
This is one of the areas that, again, superintendents pulling together budgets for boards of education. This is one area we talk about on a regular basis. And the reason why is there's only so many out of district placement sites, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And the cost is the cost.
Right,
They're not regulated. So if they say, look at, I mean, a residential facility could be $250,000 a year.
right.
If someone moves in and their child's in a residential facility, it's huge money. And we don't get to bargain with that. You know, we will look at, so we sit in on those parent meetings, and they make their recommendations, and the group just makes the decisions. But you have to legally provide what the group is agreeing on.
Sure,
So,
absolutely. No, that I hear loud and clear. I just can't believe that. I mean, I can believe this, Phil. I'm not challenging you, but I can't believe by now the state hasn't done anything to accommodate those towns that accommodate those special cases.
Yeah, that's why before any student goes out of district, we spend a bit of money trying to exhaust our options to keep them here, as long as it's the best situation for them,
And for
it's a
you.
good learning, for a good learning environment for the kid. But I mean, we do that intentionally because we know it's super expensive.
So just my last question. So whereas sometimes during the last 20 years, it seemed that Wellington attracted it seemed like we had a lot of outplacements, but now can you say confidently that special education and special needs are pretty much spread throughout Connecticut?
It is. We have a reasonable, and I say reasonable, our percentage is pretty similar to what other districts our size have for out of district placements. Our overall identification, this is one of the reasons we paid for the audit in the past, because our identification rate was a little higher, meaning we had a higher percentage of students that were qualifying for special education. And the audit basically said, you're not over identifying, it's just the population you happen to have. And so that's good information for us, because you never want to avoid over identify, because you're paying for those services, whether it's special
You
education
also don't want to
teacher.
become the town that is accommodating.
Right. But you legally have to provide
Right.
those
No,
services, so.
I just wanted to share that with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, my questions, I'm hoping will help everybody.
Yeah, and I'll show you I'll give you an example of that when we get to the program 3 to show you. This slide is just, the percentage. People always want to know what percentage is contractual. It's a huge number. I mean, you look at the salaries that are there and the benefits, you're, at 78% of our budget is in that area. And then the purchase service. So purchase services could still be people. So a paraprofessional that you're required to have for a student with special education needs, that falls into a purchase service. Having our student operating system to manage our data, to pay for our disposal and trash and telephone, our IT support, all of that is in there. So, I mean, when we start talking about what percent it, is really, the supplies, it's a very small number. This is what it costs to operate 2 buildings with this number of students that we have.
Hey, Phil,
Yes,
to go back one slide.
yes.
So salaries is 61%. Is that, what is the status of that contract? When is it in negotiation?
I believe we have 2 contracts coming up, and that is the teachers union, and then what is called the WESS staff, the non-certified staff. That group is paraprofessionals, nurses, custodians, secretaries. It's a big group, and they both negotiate next year. And we've seen, I think we've seen what's that?
Does that negotiation, does that impact this budget that you're presenting now?
No,
So
they negotiate next year for 22-23.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then just overall, again, one of the increases, program 3, special education, the school choice. We've got several kids that moved into town that never came to the Wellington Public Schools. We're paying magnet school tuition. And then benefits, when your benefits goes up 2%, it goes up. We're constantly looking at savings, as opposed to cutting things. We tried to be reasonable, but find savings. So fuel savings, insurance, we've applied over $500,000, I think, in grants you're going to see this year. Without those grants, we would have a big challenge. And then staffing. We're looking at staffing. There's a position, we're down teaching position next year because based upon our population, we don't believe we're going to have 3 incoming kindergarten classes. So we eliminated one of the positions in the budget, and you'll see that. Here's just some of the grants you can see, and I said close to 500. This is 446. So the special education grants, again, more money was applied this year than or in this budget than the current year. The preschool grant is a portion of a teacher. The excess cost grant is anything that's over that 4.5 times the cost of a student. We safely believe that we're going to be able to get $121,000 back in excess cost. So we offset the budget this year, $121,000. All right, so it's not like we get $121,000. It's play money. We offset the budget. The general education grants that are there, Title 1, 2, 4, and then the REAP grant, we apply those to salaries, professional development. All of these are offsets in the budget. So the money comes in as a grant and it automatically is gone because it's applied to that. And the last one is the ESSER 2 grant, and that is grant money coming in that's specifically for COVID. And we believe, the board fully believes, that we're going to need our utility staff next year. And so 100,000 of that 115 has already been off as an offset to the budget to pay for the utility staff position and benefits. We also have a phonics program and a social emotional learning curriculum that's in that 150.
Is that, hey, Phil?
Yes.
Are these all state of Connecticut grants?
REAP is federal. The titles, I believe, they're tied to, they're federal, but they're doled out by the state. And then the IDEA is yeah. ESSER 2 is federal.
Thanks.
Yeah. So you'll see the enrollment in the other presentation too. So I'll do it here and just fly through it. The drop in enrollment this year is really COVID related. We had 19 students move to homeschooling. And the reason for that, and we have the data, is because they were concerned about COVID. I will tell you that we've been in person from day one. We're not a lot of districts have pulled it off, and we have. And a lot of these homeschoolers already, I think we've had 5 or 6 are already coming back, have already come back because they see we're making it work and we're doing it safely. And I expect that number is going to increase. So the other reason the drop in the population, the smallest learners that we have are preschoolers. We typically have classes of 12. We could not safely put 12 preschoolers into a preschool classroom. It's not like a middle school student where they're going to stay in their space. We're talking about 3- and 4-year-olds. And so we have classes of 6 because in the distancing that we were required to do, that's what we had to do. So next year we do expect to go back up with those numbers. So that's the decrease there.
So, hey, Phil?
Yes.
What's the columns there? There's a 204 and a 196. Is that the 2 schools?
Correct. Sorry, the left,
Okay. Thanks.
the left, the center, and the right is Hall. And there's a jump, Matt. You see, where's the jump? The jump from 12-13 to 13-14 was not a huge change in enrollment. That's the year we moved 4th grade from Hall School to Center School. That's why you see the change. And then this is the 10-year history of what's been returned. And look, this is just meant to show, it's not that we're mismanaging the budgets. It's to show that when there's money left over, and it's typically because of benefits, that we return it. A lot of money was returned this past year because of COVID. We weren't spending money, and we negotiated, the savings was, not spent. We didn't go on a spending spree, and fully understanding that, we may need something. I think the Board of Finance recognized that when you approved that 2% to go into the non-lapsing fund. But, there's a history here of returning money and not just going on a shopping spree.
I thought that was 1%. It's 2%?
It used to be 1% and is now 2% now. Yeah, that's within the last year or two. They changed this, updated the statute. So that's the increase. Let me jump into, and then this was, I don't know if this matters if you want to see this. This was the end of the year document that I gave to the board of, I'm just moving you guys out of my way here, sorry. This is what was returned, the 459, and you can see that the majority of it was in benefits. And again, when you negotiate in the early, I think we were at 12% or 8% increase when the budget went through, and then it was significantly lower. That's why that money's there. And so it was returned. So let me go into the main, this is the main budget document that you got. And I'm going to move kind of quickly on some of these, and then you can ask questions. This is just, that's the increase. I already mentioned that. This is the budget process. So when we built our budget, we apply all the grants and items afterwards. We apply them to the programs. All of this information shows up on the program. So you'll see all this information. I mentioned the enrollment already and the history. So this is program 1 is center school. And basically what we do is this is how all the programs are built. So the salaries are there. You can see the cost of the salaries. There's a slight increase there. Remember, there's a decrease in the teacher, okay? And it falls in this category. The purchase services that are there are all the things that we need to operate our buildings for learning. So if it's a learning application that we're using during COVID, it's an offset. But these are the things that we need: maintenance for our copiers, telephone service, internet, all of those things. You have the educational supplies, which is all the supplies for the year, the paper, any, if there's science kits, art materials, that's everything for the entire school for the year. There's an increase, and it's mainly because we had to increase some of the materials this year, and specifically that social emotional curriculum, but that's an offset in the grant, and you're going to see it at the end. So basically, ed supplies are flat. Textbooks are really like library books, things like that. The periodicals are there. All of the building maintenance that falls into this are all of the inspections that you have to do. So it's the boilers, it's the septic tanks, it's the fire extinguishers, the fire alarms, pest control. All of those things fall into the building maintenance category. So some of those contracts went up. And so, we again, we try and hold off on increasing those, and we negotiate those things. Sometimes, we don't need as many services, but that's what it costs. And then you see the conference and travel that's in there is some of that's contractual. Principal supplies are for things that come up and we need some money. That's what they use it for. And then you can see the total expenditures line. It's up about what, $16,000, but you can see the Title I offset, the REAP offset, the ESSER offset, that this program is actually down $65,000. I think it's around there, right? Questions about program 1?
Can you go back?
Go back
to the first page of this program 1 section?
Yes.
Which one? Okay, I'm all set. Thanks.
Yep. And again, I'm glad to come back and answer questions once you've had some time to digest this.
Thank you.
So again, all the programs are set up the same way. This is the cost to run Hall School, basically. It's how it's seen. you're going to see an increase here in salaries, and this is not a contractual increase alone. The increase here last year, one of the reasons we also returned so much money at the end of last year is we had 3 separate positions that were shortage areas, meaning they're listed by the State Department of Education, and they're hard positions to fill. Middle school math is hard to fill. Science, foreign language, all very hard to fill. We had open positions for quite a while, and there was savings. And then once we filled those positions, we're lucky to have 2 or 3 applicants that come into a position. We don't settle. If we find an applicant that we think is going to do a good job, we hire them. Some of the folks that we hired happen to be at a higher rate, but again, the pool is significantly smaller. If I were to hire an elementary teacher tomorrow, I could open a search for 2 weeks and have 250 applicants. If I were to open a special education teacher opening tomorrow, I might not have 1 applicant in 4 weeks. It's a shortage area. So some of these are really, really hard to fill. And so again, that's the reasons that for an increase there. Just happens to be where those people came in. Again, the subscriptions are similar. The contracts are similar. You can see what's there. Supplies are in the similar range, similar number of students. And then we're going to go down to same thing with the building maintenance costs. They need the same inspections that center school needs. Middle school has stipends for coaches because they have middle school sports. So the stipends are a contractual rate that's in there. We have to pay for the officials, insurance. You can see all those things in there. And again, the conference travel is a contractual rate. And you see the total expenditures. It's up. But with the grant offsets of the Title I, which is more, we applied $10,000 in Title IV this year. And then the REAP offset of $6,800. This program is up a little bit, but it's not up as high as it would be if we had didn't have these grants. Questions about program 2?
That's fall school, right?
Correct. All right, so program 3 is special education. This is where I mentioned a minute ago, where we try and we're making decisions based upon needs, not wants. We know right now, based upon all of our students that are identified, that we are going to need an additional teacher next year. We are not hiring a 1.0 though. This budget has an additional 0.4 teacher in it. You can see it under the certified section where it goes 9.35 to 9.76. It's 2 days a week is what the 0.4 is. And we could spread that over 5 days, but it's an area based upon need because of what's in the student's IEP. So we had to budget for it. So again, this is what it costs just for special education. So you have an administrator who's running all the special education department, is running all the PPTs, the meetings. You have the certified teachers, occupational therapists and physical therapists, all items that are in IEPs, the paraprofessionals. And one thing I'm going to point out here, you see what looks like a huge increase here. And I assure you, it is not. This is something that when I say we pride ourselves on trying to find savings, this is one area where we constantly look. We evaluated when I came in and I hired Marsha McGinley as our special education director. We evaluated how much money we were paying for paraprofessionals when we brought them in from outer, other agencies, EastCon, CREC. And we've actually hired more paraprofessionals into our Willington union. And where you see the difference is right here. You can see the huge difference. By moving paraprofessionals into our union, we are saving a lot of money. And these are the things that we look at on a regular basis. If we can do something and provide the same level of service at a lower cost. We are making those decisions. And it's showing here. Again,
Hey,
it's just salary, but it's showing. Yes, Lisa.
Hey, Phil, so that's really great that you're bringing on your own paraprofessionals rather than using registry or agency or outsource. So why don't you keep going? Like, why do you need to have paraprofessionals from EastCon and not hire all of them yourself?
Some of it is a little bit of this allows us a little bit of flexibility. And it's the people that we have are high quality people. And so there's still a cost to it. I mean, I'm not sure how to answer it. Otherwise, sometimes if someone comes in, sometimes we take a risk, because if I hire someone and they have family insurance, rate goes up, right? Because you have to give them insurance. This is total cost for the paraprofessionals for those 4 agencies. So
what you're saying, the line item for paraprofessionals of 4 people or 362,395 versus 21 people at or 411,536. In the 411,536, it doesn't show the other line item of the benefits if some of them take it.
Correct.
So what does the true line look like of paraprofessionals on 21 with that line plus the benefits?
I would have to go back to it, but I believe we're around $60,000 to $80,000 in savings this year alone. Yeah, it's not $4,000. It's still significant.
Okay.
And again, typically the people that are coming in as paraprofessionals are taking single insurance. But
no, I understand. I do understand. But so the real true value between each one of them is, like you're saying, it's 20,000. Like, is it $10,000? Say, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's more than that. And I don't know. I might have that breakdown someplace else. Don, I think you and I ran this, and I don't have it on this screen.
All right, that's okay.
But I can get that number for you, Lisa, because we looked at it.
It might be good for everybody else, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you say something, Mike?
yeah. So I think what I'm understanding out of what you said is there are a couple of reasons that you still have some of the contracted paras. One, because there are certain unique skill sets that some of those people have that you want to retain.
Correct.
And also because it provides you a little flexibility. If your special ed needs go down, you have a contract where you can reduce, as
Correct.
opposed to having all your own staffing where you'd essentially have to be in a layoff or something like that.
You're right. And this number fluctuates.
Sure.
I mean, if somebody moves in and we need one, we have to hire one. But this is another area that is really hard to find quality people.
So the contract allows you to dial up and dial down as the workload ebbs and flows.
Correct.
Quickly.
We work, those are the agencies we work with. Correct.
Thank you.
We talked about trying to keep students in district before they're outplaced. This is one of those ways we do that. Behavior consultant. We spend some money on students having their IEP if they have behavioral consultant support. And quite honestly, this cost is one of the costs that helps us keep kids in district. And so it's gone up a little bit, but going up $4,000 or $3,000 compared to having a student outplaced at $100,000 is well worth the money. This is where sorry, I'm going to jump back up to this for a second. You were asking about tuition outplacement. There's your number, Pete. I think it was you that asked that. $302,000. And that does not include transportation, folks. It's a lot of money. And this is the reason why we're getting excess costs back and why we offset right here. And we're expecting to get 121,000 back, because the cost of transportation and the outplacement tuition, that we are going to get 70% of everything over what I'm calling $90,000 back.
But it does sound like that Willington does a really phenomenal job trying to convince families, or not convince families, but ensure that the families understand the services that Willington does offer, so the choice can always be to return to town.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and listen, we have had students that in the elementary school have gone needed to be outplaced, and after a couple of years they come back.
Right.
And
Okay, good.
so we're always looking to that, and it's happened recently, and so those are things that we celebrate, and
Yeah.
we want our students in district, but we also want to make sure that we're providing the most appropriate education for them.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, I'm just going to interrupt for a second.
Yes.
Marissa, I just want to make sure the record indicates that Christina has just joined the meeting. And Brenda, thank you for taking your very first meeting being put in. And just because Christina's back doesn't mean that you are not still expected, or that we hope you'll participate in discussion.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Phil.
No problem. So the school choice, that's special education there, that's something that we've never seen before. That 141,000, we're covering that this year with some of the costs that are in the insurance savings. But there's a big pool of money that we have to pull from this year to pay for those students this year. And that 141 is the actual cost for students, again, that are choosing a different school. Maybe they've never even come to school in Willington, but they live here now. And we have talked about, the board had mentioned this, and the Pupil Services Director and my admin team have talked about kind of doing a reverse marketing and getting these folks to come into our buildings to see what we have to offer, because that's a lot of money for a small number of students that we could probably meet their needs in district. Those are not outplacements. Those are just folks that, if a student has a paraprofessional, that's $45,000. And, we're paying their tuition, and it's a ton of money. And so that's new. And so when we talk about increases, and it hurts. We lowered the Wealth After School Program funds. This is a temporary decrease, and that is basically because of COVID. We don't really believe that we're going to be offering a ton of after school programs. We believe we're going to be doing more tutoring, more one-to-one, maybe through Zooms and small groups, as opposed to what we were doing for this program. And so we eliminated that for this year. The board's expectation is that in the future, hopefully when things go back to normal, this comes back. Conference travel, again, is contractual. So
Phil,
sorry, go ahead.
I have a question on summer school. So with COVID, and the budget actually goes into practice in June, right? July 1st. Yeah. So summer school, is that enough money? I mean, you've been open right through, but how are the students faring well? Are they staying abreast of the studies? Is it harder for them? Are they falling behind? Are you going to need to increase summer school, or you're just thinking everything's groovy?
No, everything's not groovy. And I think that we just pulled in, and we have a presentation that we're working on for the Board of Education, kind of as a snapshot of where we see our kids right now, K through 8. And I'll say that a lot of districts are seeing significant slides in scores. We're not seeing significant slides. We are seeing some decreases, not across the board. Some students are thriving right now that they're able to choose remote learning. And if they choose it, they're thriving. It's amazing. And other kids are struggling. And so this money, we've talked about the summer school may not look like we've typically done in the past. And we're trying to come up with ways. We kept it flat, but there may not be, we have to provide for certain kids, it's in their IEP, we have to provide it. And if we don't provide an on-site summer school for Wellington and they go someplace else, you still have to pay for it.
Right.
We have talked about, again, doing more small group, one-to-one, one teacher to 2 students type intensive instruction to pick up any of those gaps that may have formed. There's no perfect answer for this right now because some people
So,
aren't
and-
really feel comfortable coming in.
But will kids repeat years, or are you going to adjust for slides?
No, we're adjusting for slides. And
Okay.
this is a piece of that money, Lisa, but we're also banking on, and I'm looking to my left, but the ESSER 2 funds that are coming in, we're expected to get $268,000 that is supposed to go through 2023, Donna. I'm correct about that, I believe. Through 2023, we already have offset 115,000, and a portion of that funds has to be used to address any learning, what we'll call deficiencies, shortfalls, to address that. Some people are hiring folks. We haven't made those decisions yet. We're really looking at a tutoring model more than anything else. But
Cool, because
that
I
will
just
be-
think that it was important. It's important to talk about that because you don't always see that in a line item, right?
Correct. And it's really, we're taking these dollars and applying them differently than we've typically done. You're not going to see a typical summer school in Wellington this year.
Right.
You're going to see something different, but we're doing it in a way to better meet students' needs right
And
now.
still have to pay for the teacher education portion of that special or change or, yeah.
Correct. Yep. So these are all the offsets again. So you see the total budget, the excess cost is there. We feel like it's a safe offset. The other ones are just grants. So this is off of a salary. This comes off, takes off the salary, the 5,086. This is off of classified staff, which is a para, and then purchase service. We have some money in there. We've applied more money, and so you can see for having to cover, we hired an additional teacher at 0.4 and having to pay for those student school choice, and this budget's only up 46,000. I think we've done a great job, and really it's because of looking at things like para savings. Any way we can find savings in programs we're doing. Questions about the special ed program? All right, those are really the heavy hitters. Program 4 is transportation. A lot of this is just straight contractual dollars. The increase is there. So you're paying for a bus contract that's there. It's up next year. We'll be renegotiating that. You see the secretarial position, and what that basically means is it's not a 0.35 position. That's a portion of a 1.0 position, but 0.35 is part of their salary or part of their task is tied to transportation. They're responsible for all of the transportation, so it makes sense to apply it to this area. Okay, so you see in there just the salaries, the district services that we have, and sporting events, field trips. The savings again was in the diesel. Matt, you were asking about the credit. There's the $9,000 credit that we received from diesel last year, and you can see, I mean, look, that's a pretty decent savings for buses. We hope we can keep that number down in the future. So you got a slight increase here on the transportation budget.
So Phil, is the secretarial support the woman or the person that manages busing in the morning and in the afternoon if there's any sort of?
Not necessarily, no, that could be an administrator.
Oh, okay.
This person is the one that does any bus routes, any adjustments with bus routes. If there's anything, that we need to change and make, send a kid out home on a different bus, They're providing part of that approval process. So at certain times of the year, that job is bigger, and certain times it's smaller. Don, I'm going to clarify something. I don't have this, and sorry, I wasn't prepared to do this tonight, but I'm trying to go with it. Donna, is that 0.35 multiple people, or is it only one? It's multiple people. That's what I thought. I think there's part of that 0.35 is at center school. Part of that point is the secretariat center. Part of it is 0.35 at hall, and part of that 0.35 is my assistant. So of the people that are made up, 1/10 of their job is transportation. Donna, do I have that correct? Okay.
Is that something that wasn't funded before? It was just part of the secretarial position, and because they have to stay later or do these special jobs, you've
Nothing
built it
extra.
back in?
No, nothing extra. I think where this came from, Lisa, is when Dr. Jacoby came in and really revamped this budget presentation. She was trying to give you a sense through the programs of what it costs to run that program. And so, we have a secretary at Hall, administrative assistant at Hall, that is responsible for a part of transportation. She's also responsible for a big chunk of maintenance. And then she's also responsible for part of Hall School. So granted, she's at Hall School all the time, but if we put in a purchase order for something maintenance related, she's the one that does it. So even if it's for center school, she does the work. And so her intention here was to really show that, look, it takes a portion of each person at each of these places to do the work.
So you became more transparent with this new
Trying to
proposal.
be.
Yeah,
Got
got
it. To
it.
show that
got it.
this is a part of their job. They do a
But
lot in
it's
this.
right.
It shows.
It helps us understand why they're getting, yeah, got it.
Any
Phil.
questions about that program? Yes, Mike.
Phil, I think if I've sort of followed budget trends over the last few decades, there was a move many years ago to leverage shared services. But what came out of that was someone doing work like you're talking about, someone spreading work over multiple programs, which was great. What didn't come out of it in the early days was allocating the cost. And
Correct.
just knew that person was working across multiple programs and that it was a benefit to not have 3 secretaries for 3 programs. When you really only had 1/3 of the workload for each program, you used 1 human to do 1/3. Now this is an effort to actually allocate the cost so that you can actually see that, like in this case, program 4 is using 1/3, basically, is using 1/3 of a secretarial position.
Correct.
And that regardless of how many humans that's spread over.
Right. And you'll see, I'll come back to this, but you'll see the same thing right here, operations and maintenance. And that person I talked about at Hall, there's 0.15. She's a 1.0 person, but 0.15 is secretarial for maintenance. And then it's the same thing. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy. It's the same thing up here. So it shows 1.65 secretaries at center school, but there's 2 full-time people, but a portion of their job is in other areas, special education, a portion of their job is in transportation.
Right.
And they're reflected in the full, gamut of all of the staff. Any other transportation questions? Okay, program 5 is health services. This is our nurses. We have a nurse in each of our buildings. They get some conference money. We're required to have a medical advisor. Of all years, and it's been very helpful to have a medical advisor. This is one of them. The medical advisor is the one that kind of oversees what we'll call oversees our nurses, but really they're the person that writes the orders, and then the nurses follow out the orders. And if our nurses have any questions, they call the medical advisor. There's money in there for sub nurses. There's money in there for medical supplies, and you do not see a huge increase here. And it's because of grants. I will tell you, all of the masks, some of the extra things, the gloves, the gowns, the face shields, you don't see a dime increase here because of grants. We've paid for all of those items out of either the coronavirus relief fund or the ESSER 1 or ESSER 2 fund. And we don't believe we need a budget increase here because we will continue to be able to do that.
Hey, Phil,
Yeah.
nurses, is it 2?
Correct. 1 in each building.
That's like, you got a great deal there.
Yes,
You're
we
lucky.
have 3 people. I will tell you, look, at everybody's worked extremely hard this year. I have never talked to our nurses so much in my life. We talk on a regular basis because when we're contact tracing or we're dealing with travel restrictions and questions, we talk constantly. And so we have 2 great individuals. We have great staff, but we have 2 great nurses right now.
Well, but you
that
also,
really
I
do a
mean,
lot.
I appreciate that it's a very good job to have in a nice town, but like, wow, we're getting a good deal.
We are. Questions about the program 5 health services? And again, we can't see everybody, so just holler if you have a question, please. Program 6 is curriculum and staff development. This is where all of our professional development comes from. And a lot of this is, there's some contractual items in here. Like you see, it says contractual here. The support for curriculum leadership is the constant rewriting of curriculum and additional tools that we need to have a high quality curriculum. It's one of the goals of the Board of Education. That money is really critical, providing professional training for teachers. And that goes outside of the contractual items. There's money in here for teacher workshops for in-house. So sometimes, and especially this year, we are using an expert out of EastCon who, and we talk about savings again. I'm going to give you an example. We have hired someone out of EastCon that is a prior employee of the Readers and Writers Workshop from Columbia University. He was one of their trainers. If we were going to hire a trainer from Readers and Writers Workshop out of Columbia, we would spend $2,000 a day. We get that person for 4 days, around that 3 or 4 days for that same amount of money. So, you know, we look to find the highest quality, what's in striking distance of us, and to make our money go as far as we can. So you can see that, you know, it's needed. It's how we keep high quality teachers and provide the training they need. So this is the grant offset here that's in the Title II is, again, we offset it. It's for professional development. It's how we write the grant application. And so there's a decrease in this line because we put in every dollar that we had in that grant this year. Questions about this program? Program 7 is utilities. Kind of already mentioned this, where we get the heating oil here. Look at the savings there. I'll tell you the one that drives me insane, and I have to put this in every year, is that energy performance contract lease payment. 21-22 is payment 8 out of 17 years. This was signed years ago. This is what puts, they did spray foam, door seals. They put some energy savings things to shut down computers. They did a light bulbs. There was a whole upgrade that was done, and the savings was supposed to cover this. And you're going to be paying for many years. Unfortunately, I'll tell you that light bulbs are already improved way more than what we have, and you don't have a choice. This is one of the, you're going to have to keep paying those payments. So
Who is that, Phil?
say that again, Matt.
Who is that? Who provided that service?
Siemens provided the service, and some good things really did come out of it. But I don't know how you track that. They were supposed to track the savings, and one of the things that I think we didn't realize when that was signed was we had to pay them on an annual basis to track the savings, and so we stopped doing that because it was just an additional payment to them, right, Donna? And we just thought it was just throwing away money. So there's the payments that are there. Again,
Yeah.
electricity, we expect to go down some, and the water's a little bit lower. Somebody was trying to say, jump in?
It was a very good program. It was very financially sensible for Siemens. It was very good for them.
I don't know. I think at the time, if you were going to do all those projects, it may have been a lot more money. But it predates me. And again, there are some good things that came out of it with the building envelope, with spray foam and things like that. But you just have to pay over many years. So you're stuck. Program 7. Program 8 is operations and maintenance. So this is, again, I mentioned that secretary, she's right there. We have 3 custodians. So our night custodians are 2 at Hall and 1 at Center School. The Center School custodian cleans 30,000 square feet. The Hall School's custodians at night cover 60,000 square feet. So it's basically 1 custodian per 30,000 square feet. And then we have 2 maintenance custodians. They are the folks that are there during the day. They're the folks that break. They're doing the fixes, and if they can't do it, they're bringing people in. I will tell you, our maintenance custodian today, we had and they're still working on it. I'm going to drive to Hall School after this meeting. We had some sort of septic failure today at Hall School, and had sewage back up into our locker rooms and a bathroom. I could show you a very lovely picture of an internal camera and the pipes that went out today. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And so these guys, the maintenance custodians, they earn their money trying to keep these buildings running, and they're old. The buildings are old and they need some love. So this is what's, oh, sorry, yes, hello?
Yeah, so maintenance custodians, I'm seeing maintenance custodians, secretaries. I don't see any professional level people. Is there some kind of a facilities management, engineering, anything like that regarding maintenance of the 2 schools?
We used to have a director of facilities, and that when that person left, the position was not replaced. And what we did was we pay our maintenance custodians. I will say they're small and reasonable stipends to do things that are extra hours, and to basically manage contracts and things like that. It's outside of their daily duties. And then we pay MCOR is our contract that we pay for, that is who does our preventative maintenance. So when they come in and they check our boilers and they find a leak, they're the ones that replace it. And so they have the certified techs on their staff.
Is that here? MCOR?
I think program, is it in this? I was trying to see where it was. Don, I know we have it in there.
I saw it. I did see it up above somewhere. I saw something about MCOR. I don't remember in a previous program.
Give me 1 second, Matt. I can tell you where it is. I can't remember if I put it into the school. Donna, were you nodding your head? You're muted, Donna.
We can hold it.
Oh, sorry.
We can hold it until.
Oh, there it is. Sorry, Matt. Here it is. It is in each of the schools. So we put it in. So we pay an MCOR contract for the preventative maintenance for both of the buildings, Center and Hall. There's nothing for this building here that I'm in, for the town office building.
So,
and they're the one, they come through they check air filters, they check, to make sure our mechanical equipment is all running. If there's a broken belt, they're the ones that replace it. So that's our group that we contract out. And it's kind of like our IT company. We have a lot of experts through MCOR for a smaller amount of money. If you get a tech that can't fix something, they can have access to a higher level engineer. We had an issue this year with our brand new boiler. The lower level tech couldn't figure it out. They brought in the top person. That was, the engineer, or the higher mechanical person.
Hey, Phil, are you responsible for do you get surveyed at all, your building? Like, are you responsible for deliverables for safety to the state?
Oh yeah.
And so MCOR helps you with that, right?
A little bit.
if they're doing preventative maintenance, aren't you have to show that. You have to keep great record keeping, right?
So we just got yesterday our newest school construction grant group. We're required to do this survey. And I mean, and it's the first time we've ever seen anything this detailed. I mean, longitude and latitude is on there. But you have to go through and basically identify all of your equipment. I think what they're trying to do is get a sense of projects that they're going to have to cover in the future. So listen, this is small town USA. This is one of the hats I wear. I was the one over at Hall School today as, you know, kind of facilities manager under the superintendent's hat. And so MCOR helps with a lot of those things, but that's also why we pay the stipends to the custodians. It's all hands on deck is really what it is.
So the custodians actually end up working longer than their hours. Like that's the stipend because they could have a 24-hour day sometimes.
Correct. So if
Yeah.
they work their 8-hour day, and you know, a contract, we're not going to let certain contractors into the building when students are there.
Right. Right.
You know, the contractors coming in at 3 o'clock, that's after our middle school, you know, maintenance custodians hours. He's staying, but he's not charging us overtime.
And if there's an emergency, he has to go in too.
He's
Got
gotta
it.
come in. Correct. You see the property insurance there. We kept the custodial supplies flat, again, because of grants. I'll tell you that we needed a lot more hand sanitizer, a lot more soap, a lot more disinfection, but it's covered through grants. There's no grant offset because we have a good amount of it right now. And we have the grants that will continue.
Did I hear previously, Phil, that Sherma is going to go away, or I thought I heard that?
So Kerma is still there for property insurance, Matt. What they are, and Don, I think you have both of them in this line, if I'm not correct, the property insurance and the cyber, correct? That you see the increase there, Matt, is because Kerma basically said they're no longer going to provide cyber insurance, and because it was just too much risk for them. And so they've separated that out, but this line covers property insurance and it covers the cyber. So the $5,000 increase that you see there is the Board of Ed, we think, amount we're going to have to pay to cover cyber insurance. And we're still working on it. It's so new. And the town is also going to have to pay a portion. I believe, Donna, our last number we saw, this was half, but some of the quotes, Matt, depending on what you're looking for, are in the $15,000 and $20,000 range, if I'm not wrong. Donna, I believe they came in high, correct? Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Program 9 is system-wide support. This is where I fall. This is where when you see students, again, that choose magnet school tuition, right here, look at the increase. So we're talking about, this is where a child chooses to go to a magnet school. It costs $5,000 or $6,000 just for their tuition, and we don't have any say in it. We have to we get the bill and we have to pay it. So it doubled this year. And we had one family, I think, move in that had 3 kids, and they're all in a magnet school. When I say reverse marketing, trying to get these kids back, this is what I'm talking about. There's a $25,000 or you know, $30,000 increase with no, you know, there's no control. And so that's frustrating.
But Phil, how much is it? What is it per person? What is it per head to go to Wellington? Is it 20?
I don't know what our per pupil is right now, but it would add an additional $5,000 if they just came into the district.
Yeah, right. Because $5,000 is what you get from the state, right?
No, I don't get anything. We don't get anything from the state.
Well, you get something from the state per head.
Correct. So you get something per head, but listen, I could add 100 students, and if they're equally distributed across the grades, I wouldn't have to hire a teacher.
No,
So
I understand. I understand.
I could add these students right back in and not have to pay the $5,000 to this magnet school, and I'm not adding another teacher, and I'm saving $5,000. And that's why I say the reverse marketing is really important. We're going to contact these families and say, why don't you come and visit Wellington and see what we have to offer?
Right. I hear you loud and clear.
We dropped the legal fees. We have a decent retainer. And so we dropped it next year down $5,000. That probably will be only a 1-year thing, but that's about, without any major cases, that's about what we spend a year. We've been really frugal this year, and we use CABE services as well. We're members, the Board of Ed choose to be members of CABE, and so they have a legal service that you can get some of your questions answered. And so we've used that as well this year and not just gone directly to the Board of Education attorney.
So what's the teacher retirement validation mandated? What does that mean?
That's an actuarial valuation. It's one of those sweet unfunded mandates, Matt, that we're required to do. And it's only, Donna, is it every 3 years? You're still muted. She's nodding yes. So I think it's out of the budget next year. And then I believe we'll have to budget for it again in 22, 23, Donna, is that correct? Yes, she's nodding yes.
But what is it though? I don't understand what it is.
Donna, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. So the Board of Ed offers other post-employment benefits, and that's health insurance to the retirees. And because of that, we have to do an actuarial valuation to determine the cost of those benefits.
And that's not system-wide, that's just a limited number of employees?
It is only the employees the retirees who were hired I believe it's 1986.
I understand. Thank you, appreciate it.
It's another frustrating line for me, to be honest with you, Matt. So as you go down, I shared this with the board. I don't want to represent that this is a decrease. What I did in this year's budget is I adjusted. I did not like how the purchase service section here was broken out. Donna and Brenda and I have gone round and round over the last couple of years since I've been here to try and make sure this is clear for purchase services, because we have so many different purchase services. We have to pay for IT, whether it's security certificates to maintain security on our servers. We pay Novus, and that's the Board of Ed's portion of Novus is our IT company. They say the amount of money we paid them, and when we were attacked twice, I believe it was last December, you could have paid that much money in ransom. And so they blocked those attacks, so they're worth every penny we get. School Messenger is how we send out our notifications to families and through our website. We have our website through School Messenger. So these are all of the different subscriptions that it takes to basically run the district. And we've broken them out so they're in, I try to be a little bit clearer, and they're in groups that make sense. So I didn't want to represent that there was a savings in that IT section, because there's not. You see the drop in the internet where we're gone to the fiber. We have a fiber project, and that was equally distributed across center school and hall school. So that's balanced out.
What's a public safety officer?
The public safety officers are in there, and what we've done is, so when we have a big event, we don't have security officers or anything like that. So we basically have folks from the fire department that we pay a couple guys to walk our halls. If someone passes out, there's someone there. If there's people parked in the fire lanes, they're the ones that are going to find those people and having them move. Unfortunately, we have not really gotten to try this out yet because of COVID. And what's another reason we dropped the money down, because we don't anticipate that, I was just saying to Mike McCoo today, when are we ever going to be able to do a show again at the middle school? We don't know. But when we do a show performance and people are parked in the lawn and all over the place, you need public safety officers to be there. So that's why they're there.
Yeah, this is sort of off topic, and if it's out of order, Mike, you can tell me, but do we need public safety officers at our schools?
I didn't hear him.
Do we
You're
need to
pretty,
have-
you're pretty muffled, Matt.
Yeah, I apologize. I'll plug in my mic in a moment. Do we need public safety officers at our schools? Full-time, half-time, three-quarter time?
You're talking about security officers, Matt?
Yeah,
Phil's got to take a drink before he answers that one.
I mean, I think Mike, and I don't know, Matt, I can answer both of you, I guess, is that, I mean, I think that's something the Board of Education, could talk about. It's not come up in the past. I think we've got other layers of security that are in place. The connections that we have with local state police that work. And there's a lot of things in place. I will, without giving a lot away, I will tell you that we've invested in our technology for security being locked 24/7, things like that, that make it a day-to-day impact significantly. It matters.
okay, thanks, Phil.
Board of Ed supplies is paper, things like that for us. These are dues and fees. Some of this is contractual in my contract. Some of it is for the Board of Education. I will tell you that, again, I took a chop at my superintendent conference money and my travel. I think that's COVID related. I don't feel like I'm going to be traveling to a bunch of conferences because a lot of them are remote right now, and I believe that's going to continue next year. I don't believe I've gotten a dime in travel this year because that's travel outside of the district, and my work has been in district this year, and we're not going out to conferences and things like that. So we lowered them down, and I think that's a reasonable amount for right now, and we'll see if we get back to normal, where those numbers will go back to. Questions about Program 9? And then Program 10 is the fringe benefits and subs. And so these are substitute teachers. We kept that line flat. The long-term substitute teacher was added in this year because we were using it every year, going negative in those accounts. And so it was requested again. I can already tell you, I believe, I know it's going to be used right away next year. And so those things are, if a teacher is going to go out on leave or maternity or something like that, that's what it costs to pay a teacher to be in the classroom. So it's there. And then you can see the benefits costs. So this is right now, Donna, this is set at the 2% rate with a 2% increase on these. You can see the dental insurance. Again, it looks like it's gone down, but it depends on who picks their benefits. If they choose benefits or don't choose benefits, that's what you can see in there. So the rest of it, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, whether it's workers' comp or Social Security, things like that.
So we pay $44,000 in substitute. By the way, can you hear me?
Yes.
We pay $44,000 to substitute teachers at $100 a day. That's 440 days.
So a portion of that, I'll tell you, is if you have someone that goes out on leave, it's more like, Donna, $225, $250 a day. Am I right about that? For a certified teacher at a bachelor's rate of pay, bachelor step 1, the lowest rate in the contract, that's how much it costs a day for someone. So if we have a person go out for 8 weeks on maternity, that $20,000 is gone fast. And typically we run through that sub money. It's for both schools. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we don't have a problem with attendance. But I will tell you that it goes fast.
How many teachers do we have?
We have about 100 staff, but teaching staff, I think, is around, it's 52.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And Donna, I'm sure we could provide a breakdown about that, and if it would help that. So the only other items that are really in the budget are, there's an overview of the center school program. I'm not going to go through that. Same thing with hall school and special education. You can learn about some, some of the things that they're looking at when they identify their budgets. The section on grants here, it explains what the grant is and how it's applied. So you can see that. And then Matt, you were just asking about the staff. This is the number of staff, and I did find an error the other day, 12, 13. I think this is actually supposed to be 14.5, and I changed that in my document. So that's the budget. Again, let me get back to the beginning. The overall increase for the Board of Education budget, that snapshot is right here, 1.14% increase. I will tell you that I believe this is the lowest budget in many years. And it's reasonable, and it's through savings that we've identified in creative ways, and through application of grants. And I'm hoping that you'll see that. We realize the board realizes that you asked for 0, but this is what they came in as what they felt like they needed to operate the school system next year. Questions for me?
Phil, I'd like to echo one thing. It is the lowest number that I remember seeing in quite a while. And if there's any year that we probably need that, with the unknowns this year, that's good. Pete Tanaka, I see you've raised your hand.
Yes, Phil, the last budget that was approved, we never got a MBR for that I recall seeing. And do you have any faith that we may see an MBR for this budget before we approve it? Or are we still just taking a shot in the dark guess?
Yeah, I think we've talked about that and told them their timing of their development of the MBR, it doesn't align with the development of people's budgets. And so you'd be taking a shot in the dark.
Did we ever get the last one?
The last one is out. I'm not sure if it was sent out to the Board of Finance or not. But I'm
All
sure
right, I don't remember seeing it. That doesn't mean it wasn't sent out. Mike, can we check into that?
I will certainly, absolutely. I know that we had been checking well into the fall and it hadn't come out, so I'll look back and see if I got something from Phil during the winter, or Phil, if you want to look also, we will gather it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Again, Phil, I apologize for putting you on the hot seat tonight without people being prepared. I'm sure board members will have a little time to ruminate over this, and we'll try to make sure that we've lined up a time for you to be back on with us.
No problem. And I think if there's specifics that, we can identify ahead of time, if you want to email me any questions, if it's something that we have to research, glad to take the time to do it and share the information at your meetings.
Okay. Yeah. So note for board members, please email me with questions. It would be better to send them to me. If you want to CC Phil, that's fine, but it'd be better for you to send them to me so I can make sure we've collected them all. And also that way, if 3 different board members have the same question, we send it to Phil one time. And I will make sure that they get to him. Any other board member discussion or questions for Mr. Stevens or Mr. Errico?
I just want to say that I appreciate all your efforts and your hard work.
Thank you.
Amen to that.
I gotta pass that along to, I think that was Brenda. Donna Latinsic and I spent some weekends here going back and forth and just trying to find every dollar we could to get this budget down to where it is. And so, I give a lot of credit to the Board of Ed asking the questions, to my administrative team and the teachers, but Donna spent a lot of time, my assistant Brenda spent a lot of time on this to get it to where it's at. And so just kudos to them and for their work.
I appreciate it.
Okay, looks like we have no other board comments or questions for this. That ends our regular agenda items. On to correspondence, with the exception of the Board of Ed budget, which apparently did not get transmitted properly. Everything, I believe everything that I've gotten has been sent to board members. And I will go back through it all tomorrow and look at all the forwards. So on to present to speak. If there's anyone who's has a camera and would like to turn on their camera and wave for present to speak, please feel free to do so. Okay, seeing none of those, anyone else who is attending the meeting who would like to speak, unmute your microphone and call out your name, please. Okay, thank you. Good and welfare. I will repeat my usual remarks. We all know we're in an improving situation, but still in a public health crisis of sorts. And I wish all the members and all of our constituents good health and recovery from this so we can start getting our town back to normal and our lives back to normal. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Point of order.
Yes, Matt.
So I had questions on the annual report that we reviewed last month. So I reviewed it and there's probably 30 questions that I have. So can I forward that to you?
Absolutely. Yep, certainly. Okay, we have a motion and a second for adjournment.
A second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Sounds like we have a motion that carries. Good night, everybody, and thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Mr.
you.
McKinnon.
Good night.
Good night.